the highest average value per follower is on Instagram. And in fact, Instagram is 11 times higher than TikTok, 4 times higher than YouTube, it's higher than Twitch. Yes, you can have viral podcasts, you can have viral YouTube videos, but it's much tougher over there. Perfect sweet spot between going viral and at the same time taking that exposure and converting it to followers and customers. Instagram followers are just converting at a higher rate and they're spending more money than other platforms. No matter what social media platform you're on, there's 3 steps to grow. Just 3. Step number 1.
Brock Johnson, it is great to see you off the slopes for the first time. Thanks for joining.
Yes, sir. Fired up to be here. Happy we made this connection and can't wait to jam today.
Yeah, so I met you randomly at Baldface with Dan Martell and a bunch of other people. Then we just hung out. And I found out later that you are the person to talk to about growth on Instagram, amongst other things. But you have a podcast called Build Your Tribe. You also have Insta Club Hub, which you launched in 2020 with your mom, who people may know from a crazy fitness journey, lots of infomercials, et cetera. But that now has 50,000 plus members. And there's sort of this never ending trend of Instagram changing, evolving, people trying to chase it. And I wanted to start there. What is the big mistake that you see entrepreneurs making on Instagram right now?
Such a great question. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs, content creators make on Instagram, it's really a mistake they make on all social medias, is this chase, this constantly feeling overwhelmed, the FOMO, the stress and the anxiety that honestly, and I can say this wholeheartedly, is caused by my group. Like it is caused by the fellow Instagram social media coaches. I try to be a voice that kind of counteracts that. But I recognize that if nothing else, I am just another voice, that's yelling into the void here. And us social media coaches, we are infamous for saying things like new algorithm update, this latest change, this new feature. And selfishly, that's the kind of stuff that's going to perform well for us. But to be totally transparent, the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs and business owners are making on social is constantly freaking out about all of these changes and updates and trends, when in reality, there's just a few core things, a few core strategies that if you can stick to those, you're going to have success. I view it, kind of similar to like the workout world where yeah, there might be a great new exercise that's gaining in popularity. There might be, a great workout of the day that's really, popular right now. There might be some fad trend of, hey, try this with this band, do this exercise. But at the end of the day, if your calorie out is more than your calorie in, you're going to lose weight. If you are straining your muscles to and past fatigue, you're going to build muscle. Like there are these tried and true strategies and principles in fitness that are always going to work. Like they worked whether we were cave people 100,000 years ago or we're living in the modern world today. And the same is true on Instagram. There's just a few baseline strategies that if you can stick to those and stay consistent, you're going to win in the long run.
I think that one of the things that gets tricky for people when we look at social in general, you talk about the things that work and the things that don't work. You have, pushing 1 million followers right now as of May or June. Shit, it's June 2025. Insta is the main platform you're on. So when you talk about the core things, let's start with, is Instagram the best platform to be growing on and getting attention on? And are the principles on Instagram the same as on other platforms?
Yeah, 2 really great questions here. So I believe that Instagram really operates in this perfect middle ground where you can go viral, get attention, get hundreds of thousands or millions of views every single month, which isn't possible on most platforms. There's only a few, primarily Instagram Reels and TikTok. Those are the 2 main platforms where that is relatively possible and doable. And at the same time, Instagram is a great platform for conversions, which ultimately we're business owners. Like millions of views are cool, but at the end of the day, we need conversions. And according to the data, according to a study that was done by Carrot Financial, the highest average customer value or the highest average value per follower is on Instagram. And in fact, Instagram is 11 times higher than TikTok, 4 times higher than YouTube. I believe it was 4 or 5 times higher than Twitch, the popular live streaming platform. And so Instagram followers are just converting at a higher rate and they're spending more money than other platforms. So I do believe TikTok is a great platform. TikTok is awesome for getting exposure, getting reach, going viral. But what I hear from so many people who are super popular on TikTok is that they use TikTok as like the very top of their funnel. And then they funnel a lot of their most engaged TikTok followers over to Instagram because that's ultimately where a lot of sales are taking place. I'm also a big fan of podcast and YouTube, but those are really, really tough to grow. And yes, you can have viral podcasts, you can have viral YouTube videos, but it's much tougher over there. The evergreen component is a great beneficial factor, but just from what we've seen, Instagram is really this perfect sweet spot between going viral, getting a lot of views, that exposure, and at the same time, taking that exposure and converting it to followers and customers. To answer your second question about, are the strategies essentially the same? They are. There are a few minor nuanced differences in terms of maybe how you set up your profile or what kind of content is going to perform best on each platform. But I truly believe that no matter what social media platform you're on, there's 3 steps to growth. Just 3. There's not a million. There's not 17. I asked people on a live training last week, how many steps do you think there are? And the average answer was like in the 20s. There's just 3. Step number 1, identify a clear niche. And I define the niche as the who, like the demographics. What are you talking to that group about? That's step 1. Step 2, optimize your profile. Right? Make sure that your profile is set up correctly. Make sure that your recent posts reflect your niche. Make sure that your bio is like a billboard and it can clearly and concisely tell people what it is you're all about. That's step 2. And then step 3 is just posting with a growth-oriented strategy. Now, the exact strategies might vary a little bit from platform to platform, but ultimately it boils down to 2 things: quality and quantity. Can you make good posts, and can you make a lot of them, and can you do both at the same time? If you can do that, if you can follow those 3 steps, you'll win whether you're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, it doesn't matter.
I think that the defining your niche and the profile, it's shocking how many profiles are just in disarray and a mess.
Yeah.
Knowing that functionally your profile is your landing page on these platforms. Mm-hmm. The niche is an interesting one, though. And I want to talk about that relative to business, because you just said at the end of the day, the views are great, the subs are great, but if you're not converting, what's the point?
Yeah.
So do you think that the type of business or the specific niche you're in changes what platform you should be driving towards, or do you still hold that Instagram is still the best place to convert?
I think Instagram is the best place for B2C. I think for B2B, you could definitely make an argument for LinkedIn. I think that there are slight differences depending on what your product is and who your target demographic is. If you're trying to reach Fortune 500 CEOs, then I wouldn't recommend posting 40 TikToks a day, because that's just not where they're hanging out and spending most of their time. But I would imagine, Brad, that for most of your listeners, I would say probably 95% of them, definitely 90% or more, Instagram is probably your best bet, but there are exceptions to every rule. There are exceptions to, every best practice. And so there can definitely be other platforms, and you can make any platform work. I think I'm a firm believer that it might be tougher or easier on certain platforms, but you can pretty much make any platform work for any business with the right strategies in place.
Well, I want to put a pin in the content creation element and the tactics and strategies around that, because you mentioned that, and I want to hit on that hard. But while we're talking about the conversion path, you mentioned B2C and Instagram. And one of the reasons that Instagram is one of the paths that are effective for conversion, now they've got embedded product sales in Instagram, right? You can swipe up, et cetera, et cetera. But you can also go DM sales for stuff like high ticket transactions or consulting, et cetera. Mm-hmm. What are the paths that you see for conversion in Instagram, and what are the benefits to one versus the other?
Yeah. By far, the most effective conversion path on Instagram is through the DMs. From what we have seen, there's a specific tool called DM automation. And whether you're selling a high ticket course or coaching, or you're selling a low ticket digital product, anything in between, memberships, physical products, anything, we see that the DMs are the biggest power play. According to the head of Instagram, they believe that the DMs are their sweet spot. That is what Instagram excels in. That's what I believe as well. I believe that's why Instagram has such a higher customer value than on any other platform. Think about all the other social media apps. You're not really DMing people. Like I don't know if I've ever sent a DM on YouTube. I don't even know if that exists. I don't really send DMs on TikTok, but on Instagram, DMing all the time. Like all my friends DMing each other, people, my followers DMing me, customers sending messages to each other. the DMs are really active. And in fact, according to the Q1 earnings report in 2025 from Instagram, Instagram direct messages are used 60 times more than the Instagram feed. The amount of content being shared via DM is 60 times higher than the amount of content shared in the feed. And so that's why the sales process is so much more effective in the DMs on Instagram, not to mention the ability to build trust, relationships, serve your audience, meet their needs, answer their questions, solve their problems. All of that can be done so much more effectively in the direct messages. Now, I mentioned DM automation. That's a specific tool. Comment this word and I will send you this thing. Maybe it's comment the word guide and I'll send you my free guide to growing on Instagram. Or it can be DM me the keyword unlock and I'll send you the link to unlock this special feature. It's basically telling your audience, prompting them with a specific word, phrase to comment or to DM. And then you can automatically set it up so that it is sent out, whatever it is that they're looking for, automatically sent to their inbox. It's instant. They don't have to hunt for it. And the best part about this is the typical method of selling on Instagram is click the link in my bio or click this link on my stories. And when you do that, when you tell someone to click the link in your bio, click the link on your stories, they're left with one of two options, and both options are not very favorable. Option number one is scroll away because they're uninterested. That option's always going to be there. We can't get rid of that. Option number two, if they are interested, in order to purchase, they have to do a lot of work. They have to go to your profile. They have to go find the link. You probably have a link menu in your bio. They have to find the right one. So it's a lot of work for them, but also for you, you didn't get any engagement. They didn't interact with your post. They literally left your post because you told them to do so. And so when they're leaving your post, that post isn't getting engagement, and thus it's not going to get very many views. So instead with DM automation, you're telling them, hey, comment this word and I'll send you the link directly to your inbox. Now your post is getting engagement, your post will get more views, and your followers are getting the link that they need to become customers so much easier.
So one of the things that I think that I hear people talk about, and I'm curious about your take on, is third-party tools in general. And I know Instagram has some automation built in for these things, but there's all this, there are third-party scheduling tools, there's third-party DM automation. There are ways to interact with Instagram externally. What penalizes you and what doesn't from a outside of Instagram integration perspective?
Yeah, I love this question. It's super important because this is like one of the most myth-fueled and anxiety-driven questions that I get all the time. You will not be penalized for using a third-party app as long as it is an approved software by Instagram. I asked the head of Instagram about this directly in my interview with him a few months ago, and he confirmed using a scheduling tool, using an outside editing app, using a DM automation tool, as long as it's approved by Instagram, you will not be penalized for doing so. Now, of course, that's what he says. That could not be true in practice. That could be false. That could be wrong. Well, a study was recently put out by Hootsuite and the Insta Club Hub, which is our business, where we looked at posts that were made, that were edited using CapCut, which is the most popular mobile short form video editing app, posts that were edited using the new Edits app, the app put out by Instagram, or right in Instagram themselves. And all three had no difference. There was no change in views or engagement, regardless of where you edited the app. The one asterisk I will say, and this is directly from Instagram themselves, make sure there's not like a watermark or a logo. Some people are cheap and they don't buy the pro version of CapCut. And so there's a little CapCut logo down at the bottom. Just make sure to crop that out, or don't be cheap and pay for the pro version so there's not a logo on your video. But that's totally fine. Same with DM automation. I recommend using ManyChat. That's the most popular and widely used tool for DM automation, approved by Instagram, totally fine and legal to use. And scheduling, again, there's like 40 different schedulers out there that all pretty much do the same thing at slightly different price points and slightly different features. But as long as it's approved by Instagram, you're good to go.
You know, that's interesting because when ManyChat started many years ago, like right after they launched, Facebook put a ban on third-party integrations into their DMs, specifically into Facebook Messenger. What do you think changed? And obviously, I think at the time, Facebook was independent from Instagram. I can't remember where the merger or where the acquisition was. But what do you think changed from the stance of, we don't want to automate the DMs to leaning in to, hey, we're going to build automation internally and actually encourage that DM engagement.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that changed. I think number one, Instagram, Facebook, Meta, they realized that it's much easier and more beneficial, profitable for them to allow third-party independent companies to create this software and create this technology. And then down the line, they can kind of steal some of the engineers, they can steal some of the tech along the way. Maybe they can buy out some of these companies and integrate it into Meta. Meta, one of Zuckerberg's founding principles is move fast, break things. And that's why Instagram and Facebook are always broken. That's why there's always glitches and malfunctions. And so I think they probably recognized that pretty early on. DM automation is a very complex software that they're probably going to break it a lot if they build it. And then I think the ultimate driving factor was just that so many of us business owners started to adopt and use these features and saw extremely beneficial results from using them. And so it was kind of a thing where it's like, hey, we got to kind of keep the masses happy here. We got to keep everyone happy, because if we ban this and take it away and then we replace it with a pretty roughly made alternative, then people are going to be very unhappy with us. And so I think that's ultimately why they decided to open up the API for these third-party apps.
Well, when we look at, you hit on this just now, but when we look at sort of the evolution of these platforms, we have gone since 2015 to 2025, that 10-year period, and obviously it started earlier, but that 10-year period, the creator economy exploded, and the opportunity to build a brand as a creator, as an influencer, completely changed. And so the platform started to lean into the opportunity to do that. And they're certainly more supportive of creators than they ever were. And that's true of YouTube. It's true of Meta. It's true of LinkedIn. Certainly true of TikTok, et cetera, et cetera. Also, their money comes from ads. Do you think that Instagram favors creators or business owners today more?
That's a great question. I think that they favor creators more. And I don't think this is a great business decision from them. I wish this wasn't the case, because I view myself as a business owner, an entrepreneur first and foremost, a content creator second. I view myself as a content creator who does content to market my business. And so from all of the trend reports, from all of the analytics that Instagram, Facebook, Meta puts out, it's oftentimes very focused on the creator rather than the business. I do think that the lines between the two are becoming increasingly blurred. And I really feel like there's not a huge distinction nowadays. I think that more and more creators, even the biggest creators in the world, the Logan Pauls and the Mr. Beasts, they're realizing that just getting views, just going viral, just having millions of subscribers is not really a business, right? It's not a product that they're selling. There's no services being offered. And so it's a very vulnerable place to be, just putting all of your faith in, hey, YouTube's going to pay me based off AdSense. Instagram's going to pay me based off how many views my reels get. And so while I do think that Instagram specifically favors or puts favoritism towards creators, I think that the difference between a creator and a business owner nowadays is a very blurred line. It's, the Venn diagram is very, very overlapped at this point. But I do think that they slightly favor creators.
I mean, I think, look, I use that language deliberately, and I think you're right. There are definitely people, though, that are creator first, and there are definitely people that are entrepreneur first.
Yep.
And one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you is because our audience is full of entrepreneur first people. And we certainly have a huge chunk that are creators, and there are a bunch of other labels for these people. And they're consultants, creators, info product people, info marketers, yada, yada. But it's the same thing. The other side of the game are brands that are trying to get exposure or attention to fuel their own business. Mm-hmm. Do you look at the process of content creation differently for a business like Easy Pay Direct, for example, that wants to push content out to get the attention of business owners to ultimately funnel it back to help them process payments for their business? Do you look at that differently than somebody that is picking a niche to get attention there and then saying, hey, what product aligns with this that I can monetize that audience with?
Yeah, I really don't view it as any different. Whether it's a brand, a business owner who is kind of the face of the brand, or a content creator who is going to create a product or service down the line to ultimately sell to their audience and monetize their following. It's ultimately the same principles. It's the same three that I provided earlier. The exact like content that you're posting might vary, and of course, depending on who your audience is, what you're posting, how frequently, and what you're posting about is all going to slightly change. But it's the same basic principles. And I'm a firm believer that it is that way because we're all dealing with the same algorithm, right? We're all playing the same game, so to speak. And ultimately, we are in a time and space where social media is a lot less about the social and a lot more about the media. I recently had a conversation with the head of Instagram for Business. And so it's the official meta channel for talking to business owners, not just creators, but specifically those of us who are entrepreneurs and business owners. And the head of their team said that, a few years ago, business owners could view themselves as entertainers, educators, and entertainment was something to keep in mind. But now, if you aren't viewing yourself as an entertainer first and foremost, your brand is not going to have success on social. And now, entertainment, that doesn't mean dancing, that doesn't mean copying trends and being, Duolingo, but it does mean keeping entertainment in mind and the entertainment factor and the entertainment value with every single post. Otherwise, it's just going to fall on deaf ears.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about the content creation and the mechanisms behind it then, because you started with know your niche, and then we talked about optimizing profile. Then you talked about producing quality and volume and trying to do those things together. What does volume mean to you? And what is the size and shape of it? Meaning,
Totally.
what type of content in terms of, short or reel or image post or short video or longer form video, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, love this question. So if anyone's listening, I hope they have their pen and piece of paper out because I'm about to info dump. They might need to put this on like 0.75 speed so they can slow it down and write it all down. So first, let's talk about frequency. How much should you post specifically on Instagram? I'm going to answer that by not giving you a number, but by giving you the fact, which is the more you post, the more you grow. There's a direct correlation with no upper end limit of post frequency to growth rate. Yes, there are even examples of accounts that are posting hundreds of feed posts per day, and they are seeing massive growth, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers per month at that upper extremity. Now, that's the fact, but of course, we're all human beings. Some of the listeners are content creators. Most of the listeners are business owners. Some of them are creating content for their business, which is a lot of balls to juggle. Some of them have their content team who they're going to be sending this podcast to listen after this. But regardless, it's important that we ask ourselves, what can we sustain? And the frequency that you can sustain is going to be different based off of your goals, your season of business, your season of life, your capacity, all of those different things. Ultimately, though, I say start with what you can sustain, whether that's one post a day, one post a month, 5 posts a day. Start with what you can sustain, and then challenge yourself to optimize and create systems and use artificial intelligence to work more efficiently. Not to work more hours on Instagram, but to work smarter, not harder, and increase your output without having to increase your input.
Well, let me ask you a question about that real quick. So more you post, more you grow. Are you better off? And then you said maintain the cadence, right? So if you're going to post 5 times a week or 5 times a day, whatever it is, maintain it. So the first question is, do you have to maintain the cadence, or is that more about are you going to get penalized for not maintaining the same cadence? Or is that more about just keeping your fucking head together so that you don't try to do too much too quickly?
Part of it is definitely about keeping your head together. The algorithm will not punish you for changing your frequency. If you post, an extreme amount one day, 15 times on one day, and then you go a few days with 0, the algorithm won't necessarily punish you for that. But I think it's important to replace the word algorithm with the word audience. If you have followers and you're posting 15 times in one day, that's a lot of posts for them to consume, especially if the 5 days before that you hadn't posted at all, and the 5 days after that you're not posting at all. So from an audience perspective, I would rather have you space it out. I also think from a creator perspective, it's easier to post 3 times a day for 5 days in a row than 15 times on Monday and then burn yourself out for the rest of the week. But yeah, I think generally speaking, Algorithmically, you will not be punished. Audience-wise, it may hurt you. If you suddenly flip the switch, you're listening to this podcast, you're fired up, you're used to posting once a day, and tomorrow you start posting 7, 8 times a day, you're probably going to overwhelm some people. So slowly scale it up or scale it down.
Awesome. So you might be on the trajectory to answer this one anyway, but I'm going to jump in with it. So you mentioned, the idea of somebody putting 100 posts a day in their feed and getting growth from it. There are a lot of different ways you can chop things up, and you could do a longer post that has several points in it that are of value, or you could do, a 3-second clip or a 7-second clip, and then just do a shitload of those. Are you better off doing, a post a day that has 7 points in the post, or 1 point with 7 videos throughout every single day?
On Instagram, the answer would be 7 different posts with 1 point per post. And that's because Instagram really prioritizes short form content. A lot of people, myself included, were wrong by hypothesizing that over the next year or so, and this was in 2024 when I was wrong, hypothesized that, hey, Instagram's going to lean into long form content. TikTok has leaned into long form content, and Instagram's going to copy them. Instagram hasn't followed suit. They extended Reels from 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes, but that's where they drew the line. If it's longer than 3 minutes, they ain't pushing it out to more people. And so Instagram is really all about short form content. And in terms of the length of your content, there's this great rule. The name of it was come up with by one of our Insta Club Hub students. It's called the mini skirt rule. And the mini skirt rule is the rule for how long your posts should be. And this is specifically for Instagram, but it's for how long should your reels be? How many slides should there be in your carousel? How long should your caption be? And the mini skirt rule is this. The mini skirt should be long enough to cover what you need to cover, but short enough to hold attention. To say it another way, long enough to cover the important bits, but not any longer than that. So basically, there is no magic one-size-fits-all mini skirt. There is no magic one-size-fits-all length for your content. You might have to make a 47-second video to get your point across, but during that 47-second video, don't be redundant. Don't use the same word 4 different times, saying it the same way with different synonyms. Don't repeat the same sentence. Basically, with every word, with every sentence, with every clip of your video, ask yourself, is this absolutely necessary? Does this encourage someone to keep watching the next second? Or is this a part that is redundant? Is this a part that could be boring? Is this a part that is just unnecessary? Long enough to cover what you need to cover, short enough to hold attention.
Dan Kennedy had a quote, which was, don't say blah, blah, blah when blah is enough.
Yeah, I love that. So again, that's really the quantity piece is the more you post, the more you grow. Start with what you can sustain and then figure out ways to scale up that number. The quality piece, there's a lot more that could go into it, right? There's a lot of different things that we could consider. I would say the number one most important thing to consider is the hook. The opening sentence, the first 3 seconds of your video or the first slide in your slideshow. The hook is everything. If you cannot hook people, I don't care how valuable the rest of your content is, the hook is absolutely everything. And so success leaves clues. Look around you, look outside of your industry for what's grabbing your attention, what's hooking you in, what is encouraging you to keep watching. And I would say put the majority of your time, energy, and effort on improving and refining your hooks. If you aren't getting the views you feel like you deserve, your hooks are probably to blame. That's usually the most important part that I would recommend focusing on. But the more broad strategy for the quality of your content and the kinds of posts to make.
Hold on, I gotta double click on hooks first. So
oh yeah, go for it.
I know you like mini skirts, but how long should the hook be? What's the time range for a hook?
I have a general recommendation, 5-8-5, 5 to 8 words, 5th grade reading level. 5 to 8 words, 5th grade reading level. 5 to 8 words, because if you go more than 8 words, it's like, think about your headline on a newspaper. If you pick up a newsletter or on a newspaper and it's like more than 8 words, it's like a super long sentence. You never see a 10-word headline on a newspaper. And at the same time, very rarely do you see less than 5 words. 5 to 8 is kind of that sweet spot where you can get a message across, create some curiosity, and not be too short, not too long. And fifth grade reading level at a maximum, like maybe even third grade or dumber reading level. Not because your followers are dumb, but just because they're distracted. We live in a day and age where everyone is so beyond distracted. And so the more simplified you can make your hook with the words you're saying, the more you can dumb it down, the more likely someone it is to understand it and to continue watching.
That's so nice of you. I don't know. I think most people are stupid.
I listen, I have to tell my audience that they're not. And listen, I have to say, listen, your audience is not dumb, but we need to dumb it down for them just in case.
I didn't say your audience. That was a very broad statement. Certainly not my audience.
No, I do. Listen, and we don't need to get into the bigger conversation about media literacy rates declining and all of that, but dumb it down and keep it simple.
Yeah, no, I think to the point of everything that you're saying, I say this quite a bit, certainly to my team internally, and often when I'm talking to people, but one of the most difficult things to do is to take a complex topic and simplify it. And the reason that people don't do a great job with content that they create is because it's hard to create a really good complex topic and make it simple. And you are doing a good job right now of creating frameworks for people that allow them to follow that path. So I think that's great. So quality is what we're on. You've got the open hook, which is 5 to 8 words. What was the last 5?
Fifth grade reading level.
Fifth grade reading level. Right. That was the point.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So that's the hook.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I do think like it's the curse of knowledge, right? We forget what it was like to be a beginner. We don't know what we didn't once know. And so really just simplifying it, use ChatGPT, use AI, ask a beginner, look at the words and the questions that your audience is using to help you gauge where they're at and what they truly know versus what they don't. But to go back to the point of quality content, if your goal is growth, if your goal is views and getting more attraction for your business on Instagram or really on any social, I would focus on creating share-worthy content. And share-worthy content is quite simply the posts that are worthy of being shared. And when I say shared, I mean sent from one friend to another. Earlier, we talked about DMs, and I said, 60 times more content is sent via DM every day than is posted to the feed. Listen, the algorithm is not perfect. It is improving. It's much better than it was ever before, but it's not perfect, right? I get recommended posts all day in my feed. Some of them are engaging, some of them not so much. Some of them I click not interested in because I'm like, what the heck is this? But while we're having this conversation right now, Brad, I can guarantee you my wife has probably sent me a few TikToks. She's probably sent me a few reels. And those posts that she has shared with me are going to be perfect. They're going to be hilarious. They're going to be super relatable. They're going to be highly engaging. It's going to be something that's happening in my area that's like a new business opening that I need to, a new restaurant I need to go try. The kinds of posts that are being sent from one person to another, or one person to a group chat, or one person to their colleague, those are the posts that get the most views, that get the most interactions, that reach the target audience the easiest and the most. And so optimizing for shares and creating share-worthy posts is really the ultimate growth hack that can kind of allow you to give the middle finger to the algorithm and say, I don't need you to show me to the right people. My followers will show me to the right people.
Okay. So I've got some friends that send me some pretty fucked up shit in my DMs. So
yeah, me too.
Truly. So while we're on that, I think one of the questions is how to stay in alignment with your brand or your product or your message, and how necessary that is. And let me say that another way, because there are some examples where it's like, well, obviously I don't want to, put some clickbait thing out that is going to get a lot of attention, but to an audience that clearly isn't my audience. However, there are things that are like, Easy Pay Direct's a great example where our target market are companies that are doing $1 million and more in processing volume online. Now, that's, by the way, we have thousands of clients that don't do $1 million a year that we serve. But in terms of our marketing efforts, we're targeting the million and up. So we don't want to make content in general that targets the brand new entrepreneur or the person that's doing $100,000 a year, because it's not quite our target market. That said, there's a much bigger audience in that space. So how do you think about targeting the content that's going to be shareable for your niche versus being more broad because the algo is going to pick it up and it's going to get more shares, et cetera?
Yeah. So it always starts with niche. There's like five different kinds of share-worthy posts, and with all different five different kinds of share-worthy posts, and with any post you're making to the feed on Instagram, step one for growth is not just identify your niche, but then what do we do with it? We apply it to all of our feed posts. We make sure that every post we make is directly relatable to our niche. And then occasionally, I recommend doing a strategy that I call taking naps. And naps is an acronym that stands for niche adjacent posts. And niche adjacent posts are kind of what you just described. They are directly relatable and appeal to that ideal audience, but they also can appeal to a different audience. They can also appeal to a little bit more broad audience. Maybe they reference pop culture. Maybe they're talking about what's going on in the news. Maybe they're using a popular meme or trend or trending audio that's really going viral right now. And those sorts of things can allow you to kind of extend your circle and invite some more people to the business without directly, changing things up and suddenly making a post that's totally unrelated to your niche.
You left a big open loop with stories. So how are stories different?
Yeah. So stories are really only going to be seen by your existing followers. Stories do not help you grow. Stories, it's not the more you post, the more you grow. With stories, it's you could post 1 million in a day and nothing will change in terms of your followers. Maybe some people will unfollow you because that's a little bit much, but they don't help you grow at all. They are a way to nurture relationships with your existing followers. They are a way to build trust. And so I say with your Instagram stories, focus on documentation rather than creation. So you should never be curating an Instagram story, editing a video for an Instagram story, opening Canva or some sort of graphic designer to create Instagram stories graphics. No, all of the Instagram stories should be created right on the phone that they're about to be posted on, whether that's you as the entrepreneur or the content team that's actually creating the content. But stories are meant to be a window into the daily life, showing off the values, showing off the the personal side of the business or the personal brand that the account represents. And with stories, there's a bunch of other strategies we could talk about for sales and maximizing views, but ultimately they're not for growth.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that specific thing because there are I've heard that before, right? And still, when I'm looking at stories with people, I think I get a couple different sort of paths. One is like, are you going to post another fucking picture of your food or coffee or balcony or feet or whatever, myself included, by the way? Or am I going to get a bunch of reposts of people validating the quality of your product or some loose sales pitch or some multi-step thing about an event you have coming up, et cetera? So how do you juggle the narration of your life and sort of a behind the scenes view of you and using it as a mechanism to sell or to convert?
Yeah. The wonderful thing about Instagram stories is, as people know, they expire after 24 hours. 24 hours after you post it, it's gone. And so you can have a different strategy every single day of the week on your Instagram stories. If your goal on a specific day is to build trust, let's say it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and you have a launch that's coming up on Friday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're going to, make sure people know who you are. You're not just going to post what you had for lunch and the picture of your, the sweet jump you did when you were snowboarding, but you're going to talk more about your values. Maybe you're going to talk about how the healthy lunch that you were eating relates to your business. Maybe if it's me and I'm posting a sweet picture of myself doing a jump, I'm going to talk about how building this business for myself on Instagram has allowed me this opportunity, right? And so maybe I'm going to talk about how this scary thing was a challenge. Now you have to challenge yourself, right? I'm taking these things that are maybe a little bit, or not even maybe a little bit, they're definitely outside of my niche, and relating them back to my niche, but I'm building trust. I'm talking about my values. I'm showing off what I'm doing and building those relationships, letting people get to know me a little bit more. Then if Friday comes around and it's launch day, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm not posting anything on my stories on Thursday. Thursday, my stories are completely blank, nothing on my stories. On Friday, on launch day, and the strategy I'm about to describe is the strategy to get maximum views, the most possible views on your story. And of course, I don't care if the most possible people view what I had for breakfast, but I want the most possible people to view the launch, right? To view that promotional story for whatever it is I'm selling. So again, Thursday, the day before, nothing on my stories. On launch day, you're only posting one story. The strategy that I'm about to describe is called the STD strategy. It's named that because you won't forget it. If you post an STD, you will get the most possible views. S stands for single. I already said that, just one single story. The T stands for text heavy. So there's going to be a lot of text on that story. It's not a video. It can be a photo, but there needs to be a lot of text, like 2 to 3 paragraphs worth of text on the story. And then the D stands for something we talked about a while ago, which is DM automation. So it's a single text heavy story. And at the end of it, at the bottom, the call to action is not click this link or swipe up or go to my bio. The call to action is reply with the word blank, and I will send you blank. This strategy, the STD strategy, is how you get the most possible views. And I use it multiple times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, whenever I'm promoting a freemium, a lead magnet, a new webinar that we're hosting, or any sort of product or launch that's currently going on.
Text heavy because it encourages people to hold the story,
Bingo.
which is perceived as engagement.
Bingo. It's perceived as engagement. It extends the watch time of that story. And also from the consumer perspective, it allows them to read or consume at their own pace, where we've all seen those talking head Instagram stories where you could be saying the same things to the talking story that you would have typed out. But because you're saying it, there's no way for me to speed up. There's no way for me to slow down. There's no way for me to rewind besides starting the whole thing over. And also because Instagram gives us 60 seconds, most people fill up that full 60 seconds. They take all the time that's allotted to them. And so it's exactly what you said a moment ago. People are saying blah, 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 when blah would have been enough. And so that text heavy story can communicate the exact same idea, but it does so in a much easier to consume way.
Okay, this is the interruption where I'm supposed to take money and let somebody else advertise on the podcast, but I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to remind you that I also own easypaydirect.com. And if you're a business that's accepting credit cards or needs to, beyond the fact that we can do a rate review to save you money, beyond the fact that we give you dedicated account reps, world-class customer service, world-class technology, and can actually optimize the way you accept payments online, you should understand why we have thousands of people a year come to us off of platforms like Stripe or PayPal and why they prefer Easy Pay Direct. You can check us out at epd.com/BAM. That's epd.com/BAM. How many people listen on Instagram versus consume mute with no audio?
Another great point here. Less than half. It used to be that 80% of people were watching Instagram on mute with their sound off. The most recent numbers is that it's still less than half of people actually unmute and turn on their sound. So more than half of people are watching on mute with their sound off. And so that's why closed captions are important. That's why text and subtitles and captions in general are super important for getting your message across, specifically on Instagram. TikTok's very different.
What are the stats on TikTok? I'm surprised that anybody listens to this shit at all. Like 95% of my consumption on Insta is without audio. And I feel like for most people, like they're going about their day and they don't know what else to do with their life anymore because they're just used to touching their phone. And so they start scrolling and the audio is not on because that would be hugely disruptive to the room.
Yeah. So I agree. I'm the same way. TikTok, I don't have the exact stat, but it's most people on TikTok are watching with sound. It just kind of goes back to like our normal ways of interacting with and using the app. But still on TikTok, also on TikTok, there's automatic closed captions, which can be turned on and auto-generated by TikTok so that you don't have to like manually add them to the video, which Instagram doesn't have an automatic subtitle feature just yet. And so on Instagram, that's why it's always important to like just manually add them and take that extra step.
What has changed on Instagram in the last 2 years? So you've built your audience quickly on Instagram. What's different today than before? And what do you think is coming?
Yeah. Instagram is a massively different place today than it was a few years ago, not just to talk about what are people interested in and the kinds of content that is performing, but the biggest change is what a lot of people have called the TikTokification of the Instagram algorithm. And what this has essentially done is it has devalued the follower. Instagram now cares about how many followers you have and who follows you much less than it used to. It's again, this shift that I talked about earlier, where social media is becoming less about the social and more about the media. Now, there is a growing pushback. There is a growing amount of people who want to bring the social back. And I do believe that focusing on the audience and focusing on the social component is a great way to build trust and build a loyal, engaged community. But we also have to recognize the space that we're playing in. We have to recognize the rules of the game that we're playing. And the current rules that we're operating by is one that has been heavily influenced by TikTok. And the reason that you can go so viral on TikTok is because TikTok doesn't give a damn about how many followers you have, who followed you in the past, or who your followers are interacting with. TikTok says, if you make a good video that people are interacting with, we will show it to more people. And so Instagram, for the longest time, hasn't been a content-driven algorithm. They have been a social-driven algorithm. They've been an algorithm that's really primarily weighted and cared about who follows you and how many followers do you have and what are your followers interested in today and all of those different like human-to-human metrics. But now Instagram is increasingly showing posts to more new people. They're increasingly saying, we don't care if you have 1 million or 100 followers on Instagram. If you're making good content, we'll make sure the right amount of people see it. Now, it's not perfect. It's definitely somewhere in the in-between. It's not fully TikTokified yet, but there is a growing number of viewers that will be on each of your posts, specifically on each of your reels, who don't follow you, have no idea what your business is, who have never seen you before. And so when we're creating content now in 2025 and moving forward, we have to really create with this in mind. We have to be aware that gone are the days where our followers are seeing our posts, or even that most of the views on our posts are coming from our followers. Now, a lot of the views on your posts are coming from non-followers. And so it's important to add additional context, to simplify, to reintroduce, to dumb it down, and to increase the entertainment value so that that new viewer who's discovering you for the first time is actually going to be interested to follow and watch more.
We seem to have moved from, as you mentioned, I like the way that you framed it, of it being attention versus an attention-based platform, TikTok being an attention-based platform versus a social platform, and Instagram being a social platform, but moving towards attention-based. If Instagram cares more about attention and views right now than followers, what do you think is going to happen in the next year or two with Instagram?
I think it's going to continue down this path where attention is the ultimate driver of the social media economy. I believe that the Instagram follower rate, or the number of followers that you're generating per view, is going to continue to go down, which is something that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. Getting 10 million views in 2020, you're going to get a lot more followers than getting 10 million views in 2025. That there's a lot of different reasons for that aren't just algorithmic. A lot of them are just human driven. And earlier I mentioned this, growing pushback where people are craving the social side of social media. They're craving connection with each other. There's a growing amount of people who recognize that, as you mentioned a moment ago, people are addicted to their phones. They're addicted to the scroll. In 2020, it was like, hey, I can't leave my house anyway, so I might as well just scroll. In 2025, I'm like, hey, I'm recognizing the unhealthy habits that I've built over the last 5 years. And so I think that more niched down, more small and intimate communities like Substack, like School or Kajabi or Stan Store, or just like these private, intimate Discords and Slack servers where people can have maybe not 100,000 people, but they can have 100 super fans. I think that that's going to really grow in popularity over the next 5 years. The attention economy isn't going anywhere. The social media platforms of Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, where people are going viral and there's millions of people addicted to scrolling every day, that's not going anywhere. But I think that there's going to be this rise in private, small, intimate communities that are really going to perform really well.
I'm glad that you just said that. So the line was, the attention economy is not going anywhere. We are in the infancy, but certainly full swing into AI content production. It's going to continue. It's going to get better and better. Mm-hmm. How do you think the production of AI content is going to impact the attention economy and impact the way that the algorithms look at it?
Yeah, it's nuts. I think, what I've always been saying about AI is, on one hand, it is scary and terrifying. And on the other hand, it's super exciting and, just empowering. It creates a lot of accessibility for content creation. We are rapidly approaching a time where it's indistinguishable. Like I remember when the first AI videos came out and they were laughably funny.
Yeah.
And then a few months ago, it was like, wow, the expensive tools can create AI videos that look like they're, Hollywood level films. And now they're not the expensive tools that only the, elites can afford. Now it's becoming so affordable and accessible that damn near anyone can create AI content, whether that's AI text generation, AI photo generation, or now almost AI video generation that's indistinguishable, that is basically real. And so I think that there's going to be an even greater divide between consumers, the people who, to use the real word, are addicted to scrolling all day long, and the content that the algorithms are producing and that the AI is able to generate is even more addicting and keeps them even more glued to the consumption. And then there's going to be the creators. There's going to be the people who are leveraging these AI tools to create better content, to create more content. And ultimately, that's what I'm trying to encourage people to do. Is AI ain't going anywhere. The attention economy ain't going anywhere. And so as a business owner, you're playing with one hand tied behind your back if you're not using these AI tools. And I know it can be overwhelming. I know it can be scary. I know it can feel like anxiety producing because there's so many different tools that we need to learn every single week. But what I've been telling people is just be AI curious. You don't need to be an expert. You can hire the experts, but at least be AI curious.
I mean, you just hit it. There's so much going on week to week. When somebody talks about their experience with AI, you have to follow it and say, how long ago was that? And if the answer was a month ago, even then you should probably reevaluate if you're holding beliefs around something from a month ago, much less 2 months, 6 months, right? This stuff is changing rapidly. Today, as of June, that I just found out it was June 2025. What's the right way to put AI into your video, and what's the wrong way to put AI into your video? And I want to talk video specifically with that.
Yeah, really great question. I'm a big fan of using AI for the simple sort of administrative parts of video, like adding closed captions, maybe editing certain parts, coming up with and or adding B-roll to your video. Where I personally draw the line, and I think I draw the line here because it just doesn't look or sound all that great just yet, is maybe you've seen this, people creating AI clones of themselves on social. I'm not a big fan of that because I just don't think the technology is quite there yet. And also when you create, like, let's say I created an AI version of Brock, an AI clone of Brock, and it's a full video animated, fully created, fleshed out reel. People can compare that to every other reel that I've previously posted that has the real human Brock in it. And they're going to notice those differences. And it's going to be, ooh, this doesn't quite look right. It's going to be a little bit of the uncanny valley vibes that we experienced with like the early days of AI photos, where nowadays AI photos are to the point where they're almost indistinguishable. So that's where I personally draw the line. But in terms of creating graphics, in terms of adding B-roll, in terms of doing administrative tasks like captioning, closed captioning, editing up the video and refining it, I think that it can really expedite that process.
How about leveraging it to engage your audience in comments?
I'm open to that. It's not something I'm personally doing, but it's definitely something that I'm open to because it's important to me that my audience feels seen and heard and validated. And that's why one of my first hires when I really started blowing up on social was someone to respond to comments and interact. But that's a role that can take basically 40 hours a week, responding to comments, interacting with DMs, answering messages. And so what I've been approaching and what I've been not just considering, but what we're actually moving towards now is more of a hybrid approach where the sort of frequently asked questions, the easy responses where someone says, oh my gosh, I love this. And the response would just be, thanks so much, I appreciate it. Those sorts of things can be automated so that a human doesn't have to manually type them out every single time. But the more nuanced questions, the more intimate questions, the more long, thoughtful paragraphs that people are sending me, either myself or someone on the team can manually, provide that human touch and respond. And this ultimately goes back to what I believe is really where us humans can fit into this whole AI economy, is that we have a level of empathy and a level of care and connection that is ultimately going to be, only available from human to human.
All right, let me back out for a second because I read a story about you that was super interesting. And that was that in 2017, you sold $6 million of sunglasses for eclipses on Amazon. Yes or no?
That was a different Brock Johnson. It is a
Oh,
terrible,
shit.
it's a terrible name, naming thing where he even like, I call him the old Brock Johnson. I don't know if he's still online. He looked in 2016 how I looked in 2016, and we had the same name, and it's such an adjacent industry.
Brutal.
The number of times I've been asked about him, I need to have a conversation with the guy because it's crazy.
You do. Well, I'm not cutting that out. So let me ask you this. If you wanted to sell $6 million of Eclipse glasses on Amazon today, how would you leverage social to do that?
Yeah, I would definitely leverage TikTok first and foremost to gain the attention and the eyeballs. And I would employ a lot of UGC creators, and UGC just stands for user generated content, so that it's not just me creating content. But there's actually some great platforms that I'm spacing on the names of right now where you can pay people, not necessarily based off their conversions, like the typical affiliate model, but you can actually just pay them based off of their views that they're generating on those videos. And so it's a really powerful way to grow exposure and also provide these UGC creators with an income for themselves. So I would do that first and foremost. I would also use a lot of those videos on Instagram. On Instagram, I would go hard with the quantity of posts that I'm putting up. Something we haven't even talked about today is trial reels. I would post as many trial reels as I can, as many as Instagram permits me to, on a daily basis. And then as soon as possible, I would start using DM automation to actually convert all of that attention and all of those eyeballs, not just to followers, but into actual customers.
Well, let's hit on trials quickly, and I think we'll hit on it through this. Maybe not. You can tell me where I might be wrong. But for somebody that is starting from scratch today, and let me position this as this is probably an entrepreneur that has friends, family, some clients following, but a small audience, and they want to grow their Instagram for the sake of business. What mechanisms would you start with?
Yeah. When you are first getting started, I would just be really candid. You know, if you have, let's say, 1,000 followers on Instagram because you've had an Instagram for 7 years and the most of your followers are buddies from your local area, your family and friends, be really candid of like, are these people legitimately going to support this business and engage and hype me up? And thus I could continue running this account, or should I just start a new account? Excuse me. I think that it can be really scary, and most people hate when I say this, but I think a lot of people, more people than they would realize it, would benefit from starting a brand new fresh account on Instagram. Because just think about engagement rate, right? If you have 1,000 followers and most of them are family and friends, just people you've met over the years, they might not be super cheerleader friendly. They might not be the type to engage and hype up your new posts. So all of a sudden you start making posts about this new business that you're launching and it's getting crickets from your audience. It's never going to reach a new audience because of that. So you might want to consider starting a new account. But regardless, when you first start that new account or whether you're starting with the existing account, scale up the frequency as we've talked about. And then as you start to grow, or even before you start to grow, start posting trial reels. So trial reels, it's a feature that was released in December of 2024. And it's a feature that you can post a reel, and the reel is guaranteed to only reach new people. So it will not reach your existing followers. Translation, it will not spam your existing followers. It will not overwhelm your existing followers. And according to our recent studies, you can post about 20 to 25 a day before Instagram cuts you off. I was actually kind of surprised to learn that Instagram does cut you off. It's usually very rare that they don't allow you to post certain things. Like they don't put a limit on most forms of posting. But on trial reels, they limit it to, I think, about 20 to 25 per day. And again, these are reels that are going to reach 100% new people. They will not affect your algorithm. They will not affect your followers. And so what I tell people is whether you've got 1 million followers or you've got 1 follower, post as many trial reels as you can, because it's at limited at bats, right? It's like you're in the batter's box. You can swing at every pitch. It doesn't matter if you make contact. It doesn't matter if it's a base hit or if you swing and miss. You can't strike out. So you might as well just like keep swinging as many as you can. And if you get a base hit, if you hit a home run, awesome. If you don't, try again tomorrow. You can't strike out, so just keep swinging.
And from there, if you have a trial reel that pops, Do you push that to everybody else at that point?
I don't. I usually recommend not. You could, if it really pops, like if it really goes viral, you could. I'm glad you brought up that feature. It can either automatically be done, like you can turn it on in settings that after 72 hours, it automatically switches from a trial reel to a normal reel, or you can manually upgrade it. When you do upgrade it, it shows as if it was posted when it was posted as a trial reel. So if I upgrade it right now, but I posted it 3 days ago, it will say posted 72 hours ago, and it won't show up at the top of the feed as if it was a recently made post. It will show up, buried below all the other posts that I have posted since then. And so in like 98% of cases, I say don't upgrade it. If it does go mega viral and it's reaching like literally over 1 million people, then sure, upgrade it. But Brad, I've posted well over 100 trial reels since December, probably a couple hundred by now. Some of them have reached millions, and I haven't upgraded a single one of them. And so it's probably best to just leave it as is.
Could you take a trial reel that did well and instead of upgrading it, repurpose it, take it,
Bingo.
chop a second off or something, or literally just take the same video and post it?
Bingo. Yep. That is something that I definitely have done. And that is something that I would definitely recommend doing. That is also one of the benefits of trial reels is you could test out a few different hooks. You could test out a few different captions. You could, A/B test your reels, and whichever one performs best, that can be the one that you ultimately end up posting. But yeah, I would recommend posting it as if it was like a new first time posted it original reel rather than upgrading it.
Love that. Awesome, man. I have realized that we have spent very little time talking about monetization of your personal business model, but I think that's okay. Maybe we'll leave that for another time. Where do you want to point people?
The best place is MySpace. MySpace.com. Instagram is the best place to get connected with me. I'm very active in my DMs. If you DM me, you will get a response from either me or one of my team members. Probably me though. But Brock 11 Johnson is my Instagram handle, but that's also where I am on all other platforms. TikTok, X, Facebook, Brock 11 Johnson. So if you hit me up, I'll get you back.
Love it. Brock Johnson, thank you so much for carving out the time.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for checking out this Beyond a Million episode. It occurred to me just now that I never tell people to leave comments, and that's probably really stupid. I should tell you to leave a comment. So if you have any questions, or you liked the show, or you hated the show, it would be awesome if you would leave a comment. It makes a big difference in helping other people find it. Leave a comment below.